Hello everyone, welcome back for the finale of Fate Labyrinth. We're going to be reading today Act 6 along with the epilogue. I just took a look and honestly it just makes more sense to do it all together. There's not enough. It's a long final chapter and then a very short epilogue there along with some extra bonus stuff. So that said, let us get going with reading. As we see from last time there, right? We got the drop that Saber was Arthur Pendragon, which, that's going to be a thing because we're meeting with Gray, who, as we already know, has a connection to Arthur Pendragon, though not in, we haven't read that story, so we'll get there eventually. This is again, more previews for that. The Ashen Girl stood in a daze for several dozen seconds, uttering the King of Night's true name to herself. After I called her name a few times, she regained her usual composure, but it was a long handful of seconds. Then, after an exchange of a few more words, we set off. The two of us walked through the crystalline cave. Carefully, with Ad in tow, the three of us pressed on, and then after a while, we arrived. Passing through an iron door with a familiar design, we entered a stone hall that was clearly man-made. A bright, opulent room. It was red. Crimson. The hues of the floor, the carpets, and the drapes on the wall all gave the impression of that color. An audience chamber. That was how it felt, for some reason. A great hall custom built for a noble figure. Royalty, nobility, someone whose every aspect differed from the common folk to make an appearance. It had... a great hall to make an appearance. Okay, a great hall custom built for a noble figure. Okay, that should be... I see. That should be a... M dash there. Right, royalty, nobility. Yeah, there we go. To make an appearance. It had a high ceiling. The golden throne at the far end was like a fairy tale. The curtains emblazoned with grandiose crests of lions and dragons. The golden throne at the far end was like a fairy tale. The curtains emblazoned with... all exuded that atmosphere. Okay, I'm getting what it's saying. It was like a fairy tale, right? The curtains emblazoned with grandiose crests. Well, no, because you can't do a semicolon because it doesn't work as a it all exuded that atmosphere, right? I get what it's saying. Oh, this is a tough one. The golden throne at the far end. You know what? I might just rework this sentence, right? The golden throne at the far end, with its curtains emblazoned with a grandiose crests of lions and dragons, exuded an atmosphere of a fairy tale. Yeah, I think that's just one that you have to rework that to make it work, right? The golden throne at the far end, with its curtains emblazoned with grandiose crests of lions and dragons, exuded an atmosphere of a fairy tale. Yeah, see, that's much better. That's much better. And there, even though I had never seen it with my own eyes, even though I was hardly an expert on the subject, there was something that made me think, that must be it. It was the Holy Grail. There was a golden cup in the room. Not floating, just present. Certainly not being held aloft by some kind of mechanism or mechanical device. A dense concentration of magical energy, an intangible vortex, a flame which flickered without emitting heat. The descriptions entered my mind one after another, but the knowledge within me was still nowhere near grasping it. And yet, a strong conviction welled up within me that what lay before me was indeed the Holy Grail. Or rather, I was going to think, should we say the subspecies Holy Grail? But we'll go a subspecies Holy Grail, because there's more than one of them. Just only one in this story. I knew what it was that illuminated the room. This was it. The colorless light emanating from the Holy Grail illuminated its surroundings. No way. I couldn't believe it. After all, Gray and I had already agreed to search for an exit. We shared all the information that we had, and then, probably out of concern for my safety, Gray told me that escape should be our top priority. Ad gave a half-joking tease, we laughed a little, then nodded to each other, then set off. And yet, there we were, at the subspecies Holy Grail. We were standing before the ultimate goal of the heroic spirits. Had we actually reached the end? Was falling into a trap and plummeting to a lower floor actually the correct path? No. Think calmly. No. There was more than one door leading to the hall. Aside from the door we'd opened, I could see another much larger one. In fact, the door was probably the correct one. That door. If we had kept going without falling into any traps, or if I had evaded the trap I fell into, would we have been able to open that grand door and enter the hall in a more dignified way? I stared at the subspecies Holy Grail, lost in thought. When Gray moved. Silently, Ad transformed from box into a giant scythe. There was no need to wonder why. Now, fixed in a combat stance, Gray's gaze fell on a figure emerging from behind the throne. Well, well, what a charming pair of guests. A tall, unfamiliar man. His clothes were black, his skin was white. Yes, the skin beneath his black robe seemed unnaturally pale. A jet-black demon, a pale eternal, a crimson reaper. Eerie descriptions flooded my consciousness. Let's see here. How would you do this? Yeah, we'll go. Eerie descriptions flooded my consciousness. It was because of my eye's inescapable automatic function. Glam sight. My eyes, which I couldn't quite call a talent because I had no control over them, told me that this was a tall man whose smile was so chilling that it sent shivers down my spine, wasn't a friendly presence by any means. Because he may have had the form of a human, but he's not human? Oh, is your vision enhanced by a spell of some sort? Or do you have mystic eyes? He didn't deny it. Just as I thought, it was true. My eyes may not have been able to see the true nature of the demon in black. Once I recognized him as such, I could at least classify him. It wasn't human. It wasn't a chimera, golem, or automata like I'd encountered in the labyrinth thus far. I'd read somewhere that the technology to create humanoid automata had been lost. And he wasn't a heroic spirit either. So as fellow intelligent beings, let us introduce ourselves. The demon made a grand bow. I am Wolfgang Faustus, a man that you humans have deemed to be an ancient phantasmal. Wait, what? An embodiment of mystery, and a being that doesn't belong on the phylogenetic tree. Indeed, I've heard that in the Mediterranean, my kind is commonly referred to by the name Lamros. Does that ring a bell? No. What the frick is Lamros? I'm googling this. What is a Lamros? Never heard that term before. Lamros or Lamia-kin are a related group. Oh, it's from, oh my god, it's Pathfinder. It's D&D again. Are we serious? We just keep copying D&D? Well, maybe. Wait, wait, Lamaros or Lamia-kin. So, no, actually related to Lamias? Oh. Really? Okay, well, on the... it's funny, because, again, Type Moon Wiki comes up there. Lamaros are the phantasmal species of a vampire. Oh. So they are... He is a Lamia, but, a male Lamia and a vampire Lamia. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. And again, that's a foreign name, so here we go. Smoothly, the demon raised a hand to his chest. Graceful, noble. This human-shaped, inhuman being was a true aristocrat. The the pride of an absolute noble looking down upon those crawling pitifully on the ground far above. From far above. That was what I'd sensed. If the situation weren't what it was, I might have prostrated myself on the carpet. But no, there was no way I could do that. I would have been killed in an instant, without a doubt. My life, my blood would be drained like juice at the lips of the thirsty. Vampire. I clenched my teeth on the word as it slipped from my mouth. One who lived while dying, one who died while living. Labyrinth. A monster spoken of in ancient Greek mythology, a devourer, a nightwalker. Take the blood-sucking Strigoi. Ooh, that's another new one. Of Eastern Europe, for example. Also, I think you capitalize Eastern Europe? Probably. There are many theories about their origins, whether they were sinful humans transformed after death, the final form of humans killed by monsters, or corpses subject to some kind of experiment. The Labyrinths were different. They devoured life while embraced by death from the very beginning. They were likely related to the Lamia. Okay, there we go. A monster from the Age of Gods. Even if they appeared human, they were something else entirely. Monsters of death in human form. With what my eyes told me, I could only describe him as such. A humanoid phantasmal species. Or rather, a vampiric species. A dead apostle? I shook my head when Gray muttered it. No, that wasn't it. Okay, so he's not a dead apostle. He was nothing like the creatures created by Magi through transmutation, a rare phenomenon in the world of magecraft. No, that's not it. Right, left, right, left. With a sharp click of his tongue, the demon's fingertips swung like a pendulum. At the ends of each fingertips were claws tantamount to a mass of magical energy. Even without his sharp, hook-like claws extended, I felt that a single touch would be the end of me. I'd be probably paralyzed. My magic circuits would probably malfunction, or maybe I'd lose my mind. If that were all that would probably be merciful. I wouldn't be surprised if all of the blood in my body were sucked the moment he touched me. A blood-sucking demon. An immortal who sustained his life by feeding on human flesh. Young lady, I will forgive your rudeness in speaking to me without removing your hood, but you mustn't associate me with such things. That's a deduction. Oh, okay, so yeah, he was the guy from the start. Okay, so I thought he was going to be Alcatraz, but I guess not. With an oddly gentle tone, with an expression one would wear as an act of mercy toward an animal in a slaughterhouse, as if scolding a child who made a mistake, he spoke quietly. In a world where human reason pulses as life, where the fantasy and mystery of heroic spirits can be summoned in the form of servants through a ritual, monsters of death born of human corruption have little power. If a vampiric species that attacks humans and sustains itself by devouring blood and life exists in this world that pulses with human reason, it must belong to the realm of fantasy. It would be a manifestation of mystery. And that's you? Gray asked, still in a combat stance. Yes. A high-ranking phantasmal species. An absolute supernatural entity born from fantasy and mystery. A king of twilight. A genuine monster. I didn't know if he should be classified as a demonic beast, phantasmal beast, or a divine beast. He may even have been in a regular existence like the Dragonkin. If only I'd known this would happen, I would have read my grandfather's journals more thoroughly. I hadn't managed to finish reading most of those precious books, so I only had a superficial understanding of bloodsuckers. I am ancient, and the ruler of this labyrinth in Alcatraz's absence. Furthermore, I possess this subspecies Holy Grail, and therefore am the director of this experiment known as the Subspecies Holy Grail War. Experiment? Have you not realized? Indeed, this is an experiment, Ashen Girl. I hold a degree of respect and interest in human knowledge and technology. I even dabbled in the works of the subcategory of humans known as Magi, for a time as a bit of idle fun. Please stop it. Why was this demon spilling one bit of information about his true identity after another? A chill. Terror. The kind of unpleasant sensation filled every inch of my body. Accidentally encountering a legendary vampire was an unbearable situation for me. I was scared. So scared that my legs had already been trembling for minutes. The chill had even given me a headache. The only reason I hadn't fainted or vomited was because the Ashen girl beside me kept her scythe held steadily high. God, oh God, please have this demon stop speaking to us. Please let him just point to a door and tell us to go back. I wasted my thoughts on prayer. Yes, it was pointless. There was no point in thinking that way. For me, time is practically infinite, so I have mastered a great many powerful arts, and now with the entity known as the subspecies Holy Grail at my command, I have brought the 7th Labyrinth of Alcatraz under my control. The Magus Kalbic Alcatraz is your... Oh, he is not my master, though I cannot say we're entirely unrelated either. In any case, after securing the necessary material, I began this experiment, an experiment in which the subspecies Holy Grail brings its so-called guardians, the heroic spirits manifested as servants, into this world and then extract their spiritual cores. Naturally, my foolish prayers went unanswered. I had made a fundamental mistake in whom my wish needed to be addressed to. The demon spoke. He claimed that the subspecies Holy Grail War that took place in this labyrinth was, in fact, an experiment of his own design. He added new mechanisms to the phantasmals and chimeras that had existed within the labyrinth since its inception, as well as the mystic codes inside the treasure chests. What? Then, without realizing it, I vocalized my doubt. I tried to continue, asking why he had done this, but my tongue refused to cooperate. My throat, still on the verge of hyperventilating from the tension, was completely parched. No words would come out. Instead, I made my thoughts accelerate, spinning, shifting perspective. He'd modified the labyrinth so that heroic spirits could replenish their magical energy. Wrong. The subspecies Holy Grail War was set in this threatening enclosed space to create a realm of death. Wrong. Heroic spirits were summoned to kill each other as they raced toward the vault as some sort of death game. Wrong, wrong, wrong. It was all wrong. This place was a giant digestive organ, rebuilt by this vampire to prey on heroic spirits. Honestly speaking, Grace said, readjusting her scythe, I don't quite understand all that you just said, but I understand why you've chosen to tell us so much. She murmured softly. In reply, the demon nodded with a magnanimous gesture, colder than freezing, unmoving, unemotional, like the Grim Reaper watching an innocent creature as its life fades away. Of course, I'm going to kill you. Is there a problem with that? The 7th Labyrinth of Alcatraz has become a stage for a subspecies Holy Grail War. This den of evil raises many questions, but subspecies Holy Grails, derived from the Greater Grail that once existed in the far eastern city of Fuyuki, typically function as wish-granting devices after accumulating the immense amount of magical energy imbued in the souls of its summoned heroic spirits. That is the reason why the Holy Grail War forced its participants to kill one another. Ultimately, the heroic spirits are no more than a supply of magical energy to grant wishes with. This mechanism isn't much different from the original. The difference is the number of heroic spirits. The original had 7, but the subspecies Holy Grail can summon a maximum of 5. This disparity is said to be the reason why only the Fuyuki Holy Grail can be considered an omnipotent wish-granting device. A subspecies Holy Grail's limit of 5 or fewer heroic spirits makes it far from omnipotent. Even so, there is no shortage of magi who want to carry out subspecies Holy Grail rituals. They're driven by the judgment that even if it wasn't omnipotent, it can still bring them immense benefits. However, why the Labyrinth as the stage? Was the objective to have the summoned heroic spirits clear the Labyrinth as previously mentioned? We still have doubts. We have to assume that the second dungeon master, who placed the subspecies Holy Grail at the depths of the 4th and final floor, had already triumphed over the Labyrinth themselves. We need a shift in perspective. For example, what if this isn't the first subspecies Holy Grail War that had taken place within the Labyrinth? What if the act of summoning heroic spirits within the Labyrinth was the objective in and of itself? Something must have happened to Manaka, with particles of light around her. Quietly, with a twinge of melancholy, drawing strength from prayer and the glory of victory, the King of Knights, not the King of Night, that's Batman, spoke her final words. Wait, what? It was not defeat. Saber's holy sword would bring certain victory. Oh. Roaring madly, raging wildly, firing flashes of light in all directions, the dragon golem, the two-headed dragondyne, the massive mass, the phantasmal that was a hollow recreation of ancient fantasy in the modern era, was destroyed entirely. That instant, the fierce rays of heat unleashed from its magical energy reactors crossed with the radiance of the holy sword, before the 4 heroic spirits were defeated, before their magical energy ran dry. First, Archer created an opening. As if he'd expected it to come to this, he continued restraining it, fully prepared to take a few hits himself. Maintaining his invisibility through his noble phantasm, he fired continuous ranged strikes. As long as its heavy armor could withstand both physical attacks and offensive spells, even a rapid volley of arrows that could pierce steel would fail to damage it. The dragon golem probably felt as if its invisible enemy did with... One more time. The dragon golem probably felt as if all its invisible enemy did with each strike was reveal its location. That does make sense. During those few seconds he had it restrained, he was hit by several heat rays. He relied on Castor's defensive magecraft and continued his attack as if to say that as long as his spiritual core remained intact, he didn't care. Next, Assassin made his move. Paying no heed to the damage inflicted on his body after being blown away by a direct hit, he charged at full speed through the air despite having half his lungs burnt away. He had an eerie gait. Like a spider, a snake, a scorpion, a solitary beast closing in with deadly venom. He dodged a strike from the tail that was like a trunk of a giant tree. In the brief moment that the two-headed creature shifted its attention away from Archer, he activated his noble phantasm. His monstrous right arm created a mirror image of the imitation dragonkin's... Okay. Let's change it to false. False... Well, it's not false. No. We need a better word, because we're using imitation twice. Imitation... not crab. Synonym. What do we got here? God. We've used fake, forgery, replica? Let's go replica. That makes sense, right? Replica spirit core. That makes sense there. In other words, its heart. Even a temporary life has its source. By crushing it, the battle would be over. But the mere image was not destroyed. Assassin's noble phantasm was divine punishment. It punished people and destroyed their hearts. At time, it could even punish inhuman devils, as the hand of the divine could reach into the darkness. However, not a proper noun, punishment could never befall things which had multiple hearts, things which existed on a higher plane, neither human nor beast. For example, now. The imitation's spiritual core had rejected Assassin's condemnation. Its spiritual core had a divine skill as its foundation. The recoil from the attempt dealt damage to his misshapen right arm. His noble phantasm's killing blow had been a failure. Yet, in response to the anomaly of its heart being exposed, the dragon golem stopped moving for a brief fleeting moment. 2 seconds to be precise. The rain of heat rays that targeted the entire vast expanse had halted, leaving a golden opportunity open to the heroic spirits. It was Castor who opened her lips first. High-speed incantation. She truly was a magus from the age of gods. She unleashed her true potential, using grand magecraft to dismantle the thick, tightly bound composite armor that lined its chest. Like blooming flowers, she exposed its 3 magical energy reactors, leaving it defenseless. Then, it was during the battle, in the Great Hall of the 3rd floor. Wait, what? She also ensured it was a safety net in case her trump card proved less effective than it was. I must have missed a line there, right? During the battle in the Great Hall of the 3rd floor. Either way, the deadly struggle had reached its end. Sword of... Oh, this is weird. Literal? curious about this. I'm gonna see what I can do with this, because this is don't know what that means there. You know what? I'm gonna also do a right Sword of Promised Victory X, right? Caliber, like that, because in that way, yeah, the literal I'm confused about, right? But then I think this is just the best way to do it there, because we can't do Ruby text. I've looked into it. It's a pain in the butt to get set up, but I think that this is sort of the best way to do it there, right? Rather than that other way. I know it's meant to be, it's the same word said, but I would just prefer this, right? I'm curious about the literal, right? Was it Saber's final blow? The penultimate yeah, again, like I'll get that checked over with the original translator to make sure to understand what that could be. The penultimate and greatest threat, the dragging golem, was destroyed. They reached the crystalline cavern that Seijo Manaka, or whoever she was, appeared to have fallen into. It seemed that their situation had turned around, but then the King of Knights vanished, her body dissolving into light. She had expended the magical energy that she needed to maintain her presence in— oh, they're doing this so that she doesn't meet with Grey. Aw. To maintain her presence in the world with a single swing of her holy sword. My, just as I suspected. In a voice too gentle to be sarcastic, Castor spoke to Saber as she vanished. I had hoped to avoid this outcome because it's such a waste, but it's no use. You just couldn't help but swing your holy sword when the time came, even knowing you'd vanish. So that's a weird, random thing. It's thanks to you that we're still alive. Castor's tone was as carefree as ever, but his expression was grim. Archer's tone. Beneath his white mask of death, Assassin made no sound at all. After a soft exhale, Saber spoke. I avoided making any definitive statement, but now that things have come to this point, there's no use. The moment she vanished near the 4th floor's entrance, the contract between Manaka and myself must have been weakened. Despite that, for some reason, my presence had been just barely maintained. She paused for a moment. The lower half of her left arm, from the elbow downward, had entirely vanished. It appeared that using my noble phantasm was a tremendous burden indeed. A significant drop in magical energy. She'd assumed that her inability to use voiceless communication with her master was due to some kind of mystic interference, but that wasn't the case. Rather, a serious issue had arisen with Manaka herself, the master that her contract had been with. The King of Knights had surely considered that possibility from early on. Then, why did she not choose to speak of it? Did she judge that it would only cause chaos in their coordination? Or did they think she would avoid exposing her own weakness? The heroic spirit with a woman's form did not wish to speak much. I figured as much, Castor replied, her tone now laced with a hint of sarcasm. Apologies, Castor. I thought I understood the intentions behind your words, but I feel that a few of our clashes were needless. Very well, I'll forgive you just this once. It was hard to read the expression on Castor's face. She seemed to be smiling, but she also seemed disappointed. Or perhaps neither was true. That explanation would be just as plausible. Archer, Assassin, Castor. Once more, the King of Knights looked upon the three of them. Though our goals may have differed, I am proud to have fought alongside heroes of such great renown. I never imagined that becoming a heroic spirit would lead me to such an experience. Didn't want it being unexpected, the bowman nodded. Indeed, we had such fine coordination. I know it says the masked man, but it's the masked man. It's a better one. Spoke at last. I would have preferred to play with you in a much different way, though. The robed woman spoke mischievously. I'd rather you didn't. A faint, sad smile. Then a brief pause. A few seconds. Not hesitation over what to say, but a suggestion of some lingering regret. Namely, I'd like you to give my share of the mystic codes to her. Oh, my dude is literally just floating around as a mask. God, I bet you the artist was like, man, I don't have to draw him, so I'm not going to draw him. Emotional turmoil toward the girl who was meant to be her master? The King of Knights held out a bracelet with her remaining hand. One of the mystic codes they found in a chest while exploring the 4th floor. By 21st century Magus' standards, it surely contained extraordinary amounts of magical energy within it. It was valuable. Of course, it was nothing more than food to replenish magical energy for the heroic spirits summoned by the subspecies Holy Grail. The rest is up to you. Her final words. And so, the heroic spirit of the sword vanished into the faint glow of the crystalline cavern, leaving only a few particles of light, fragments of magical energy, behind. A scythe clashed against deadly claws. The Ashen Girl lunged with her magical energy-infused scythe. The demon in black struck with razor-sharp claws. It was hard to tell which of the two had initiated the fight. By the time I had caught my breath, it had already begun. Faster, faster, faster. In the blink of an eye, both had reached speeds far faster than even superhuman physical abilities could allow for. In the blink of an eye, they were 20 meters apart, blades clashing. They raced across the carpet. They raced up the walls. What faint after images they left behind vanished instantly. Even if I tried to provide support using magical energy, there was nothing I could do if I couldn't even see them. High-speed combat. A dance of blade performed by beings which, despite their human forms, displayed physical abilities far beyond what any human could achieve without effort. It was a world apart from the martial arts masters I'd seen on video sites. Here, strikes home to the point that they transcended reality itself clashed. Blade against blade, exchanged at ferocious speeds. A series of grating metallic clangs, slightly delayed from the shockwaves radiating through space. Sparks flew. Light. Physical light or mystic light? Or perhaps the residue of pure offensive might? I couldn't read their movements. They were too fast, but it wasn't like I couldn't see them at all. My eyes were gradually adjusting, processing visual information, objects and movements too fast for my consciousness to grasp, or even illusions that defied the laws of physics. Either way, at the very least, they were reflected in my pupils. The information certainly existed. It was only my brain that failed to process it. That was my interpretation. In under 10 seconds, my somewhat imprecise glam sight had finished adjusting. Once I'd adapted, my eyes would even be able to track Saber's high-speed combat. You have interesting moves, girl. See it. Sense it. My gaze was fixed firmly on the air above the subspecies Holy Grail, which itself was about 2 meters above the ground. I could see Gray, dashing across the ceiling some 10 meters high. She was soaring through the air, using her scythe, which seemed fixed in space despite not being anchored to anything, to pivot. She spun, sprinting across the ceiling without leaving a trace. She was about to launch a diving attack at the approaching vampire. A full-force assault, maybe? Possibly. Since we've already revealed everything about ourselves, I could make this guess. The effect of her noble phantasm must have been too massive to unleash here. If it were just a massive object, that'd be one thing. But when she was fighting one person in such a confined space, what would happen if she unleashed something on the scale of an anti-fortress noble phantasm? The labyrinth itself would surely take heavy damage, burying not just me, but Gray herself alive. That was why, well, since she lost her original resolve, if she saw this as a chance to kill him, she wouldn't hesitate. I thought I should at least try to support her with a snare spell, but my incantation wouldn't keep up. Even if I used the mystic code that my grandfather was so proud of, it wouldn't be of any use at this speed. So I just watched, my lips pressed tightly together. I watched as Gray, with the large scythe in her hands as her only weapon, her only blade, launched a graceful strike toward the demon. It felt like the sound of it raced through the entire Crimson Hall. There was a sensation of something being severed with a sharp clang. His deadly claws crumbled. The claw extending from the vampire's right hand had been cleanly severed. We could win. Gray was stronger than this phantasmal. Just as the thought entered my mind, I opened my mouth to voice it. and I opened my mouth to voice it. A chill ran down my spine. I had been too hasty. No, the expression on the pale-faceless monster that called itself Wolfgang Faustus was one of pleasure, calm, pity, and disdain. Run! My cry was no help at all. By the time my voice had echoed out, the demon had already shifted up to a higher gear. A massive black sword, or perhaps a long black fang. His black robe hardened like a metal blade, then fluttered with a power several times greater than his deadly claws. The black was the harbinger. Its hem was death. A pitch maul tore through the air to strike the girl like a storm. It wouldn't end with a single blow. 2, 3, 4, 5. He wouldn't stop. Grey blocked the relentless torrent of death with her crescent moon blade. In mid-air, yes, the demon's assault wouldn't even let her feet touch the ground. Don't just stand there! Go on, get a hit already! The scythe's voice rang out. Ad must have been getting impatient. He issued the warning because he realized they were being overwhelmed. A moment later, the girl vanished from view. It took me half a breath to realize that it was a kick from the figure in black's long legs, not his blade, that had sent Grey's splendid body flying into the wall far behind her. The wall. Naturally, when colliding with it at a speed faster than a bullet, she took a full brunt of the kinetic energy. Placing her hand on the cracked wall, she swayed as she regained her balance. Even for a servant, she seemed to have taken a bit of damage. As I hesitated, wondering if I should rush over and cast a healing spell. How dare a mere human body withstand a single strike, even one claw from a noble vampire? Clapping his hands, the demon made this declaration. Mere human body? No way. No way. No way, it had to be a lie. The demon's words echoed in my mind. A Lancer-class servant manifesting through the power of the subspecies Holy Grail. The fifth servant whom the other four had never heard of. I had always perceived her that way. I never doubted it for a second. I thought only in terms of my preconceptions. Even without any mind-altering magecraft or curse, my vision wavered. I felt blood draining from my body, the illusion that my fingers and toes had gone cold as ice, all because I'd come to understand that what he'd said was entirely plausible. Human. Grey was human. A girl who wielded a Grim Reaper scythe instead of a spear, fighting with exceptional skill and physical ability despite having such a... Oh my god, I just realized something. Wait, hold up. I just realized something. Is the twist gonna be that our girl here is the servant, the fifth servant, and that's why her bag reappeared? Because it's like a servant's thing where if it goes away, it can just respawn. Oh my god, is that what it's gonna be? Is Norma Goodfellow a servant? Shut up. Shut up. Wait, we'll have to see. Fighting with exceptional skill and physical ability despite having such a frail body. After taking a blow from a phantasmal, there's no way she'd get off with minor injuries. Even if she had a special mystic code named Ad and had a noble phantasm, if she were human, well, there was no way an ordinary girl could survive. Great. No. There was no unseen fifth heroic spirit. I should have realized that. I hadn't considered that someone formidable enough to descend to the final floor of the labyrinth alone could exist, or that such a person could be an ordinary human. It never crossed my mind. Then how much was I forcing her to endure? Treating it like it was natural for her to fight this monster of death. It was like asking her to stand on the execution block. Now, I'll be right there. Stay where you are. I needed healing magecraft. Ad, who could transform into a scythe or a box, well, there's more forms, and Grey, who he belonged to, may have been more than an ordinary person. She had an ability to instantly defeat those man-eating fairies and fight a vampire like this on equal footing, but she was a human girl, just like me. She'd surely gained some form of physical enhancement, but it wasn't clear if that included increased durability. So, even if I couldn't leap at the speed of sound, even if I was scared, even if I was cowering in fear, I hate pain. I didn't want to die, but I hate the idea of someone dying because of me even more. I'd run to her. I had no other choice. The humanoid monster hadn't noticed me yet. Once I entered his field of vision, he would spot me, but I'm sure he wouldn't recklessly pursue me unless he got within a certain distance, the range of Grey's attacks. If I could manage that, I could cast a healing spell even if it took some time. I should have a few items left in my exploration bag, mystic codes and elixirs to help my healing spell. With trembling legs, I pushed off the carpet. Run, run, run. Where? A voice came from right beside me. Are you trying to go, my lovely fleeting appetizer? Our gazes met. The vampire's eyes had fantasy within them. That's a sentence. Come on. They grasped my brain through my retinas. I stopped, against my will. And that is one sentence. I never gave it any special name, but to borrow Magus terminology, I suppose they'd be a form of mystic eyes. Body manipulation, perhaps? I would prefer to call them mystic eyes of domination, though. A hand of death reached out. The moment it touched my shoulder, the spell hidden in my clothes activated. A defensive counterspell I prepared after I got my equipment back. A form of dark arts. A one-time use, emergency use mystic code cherished and passed down through generations of my family. Yes, it was powerful enough to blow the hand of whatever touched me right off. Oh my god, she has a burst. And yet, it did nothing. There was certainly a glow of magical energy, but it had no effect on the demon. That was when I realized it. The ancient was... that was when I realized it. Magecraft common sense. The ancient was always superior to the modern. Two maidens, so fresh and full of life. I did not expect it, but tonight... The demon's lips twisted into a grin. The row of teeth made visible through the gap resembled a beast's. You should make for quite the feast. Out of the corner of my eye, I could see Grey getting back into a combat stance. Even though the after effects of their clash wouldn't have faded yet. The distance between us as I sat frozen on the carpet was about 30 meters. Given the speeds I'd watched her reach, she may actually have reached me. No, don't come. If possible, I'd rather she ran away, while this thing devoured me. I thought we'd told each other everything, and when I was satisfied with having nothing left to hide, I hadn't even made the slightest effort to confirm something so important. That was why I wasn't worth being protected by the girl who had hardly even recovered. Oh, that's right. I didn't have anything special. If I had a fraction of Manaka's strength, maybe things could have been different. At least, I had the courage to resist the mystic eyes and tell her to run away. Enough. In the audience chamber of the royal castle, they appeared in the Crimson Hall, the space which inspired a sense of solemn awe in all who beheld it. 3 servants who manifested to kill one another. The recreation of mythology, the embodiment of legend, heroes of human history, summoned to expend their lives for a counterfeit Holy Grail, had arrived as human hopes woven since ancient times had envisioned. In other words, were they a glimmer of arriving in the face of an insurmountable crisis? Or were they noble might that appeared to protect a modest yet precious sentiment? Like when a wicked dragon is about to devour a prince. Like when a blood-stained battle draws to a close. Like when a captivated maiden is finally restored to sanity. Enough. Demon which dares to reach its evil hand towards such young and innocent life. Words of restraint, spoken boldly through the white mast, which had caused the vampire's fangs to halt. Ah, so the main course has arrived at last. But where is the King of Knights? A jet-black smile crossed his face before the guests had even properly welcomed, along with a melodious voice. Listen well, demon. This was but a glimpse of the age of gods. Castor's lips spun supremely divine words that transformed the primordial energy around her into a torrent of destruction in an instant. A continuous stream of light projected from the center of massive magic circles that appeared behind her and around her in succession, burning the humanoid monster into ash without missing a beat, along with the young girl at its side on the verge of death. Well, no, that wasn't true. The girl, who had likely some connection to the heroic spirit of the Swordsmaster, was held in strong arms. As dark as they were not the pitch black of evil. They pulled her out of the hammer of destruction that the Grand Magecrafter had wrought. She stared at the white skull mask with bewilderment, amazement, and confusion. Save Gray.
Of course, though our meddling may not be necessary.
Assassin's words weren't a white lie. They were a simple fact. The other human girl with her torn gray hood, who had superhuman abilities despite not being a heroic spirit, had already shifted back into a combat stance. A fierce lunge. The carpet burst upward along with the tiles beneath it. Alongside Castor's magecraft, bringing destruction through pure magical energy independent of the four great elements, came a swarm of arrows that Archer had fired as the finishing blow. In perfect sync with them, the Ashen Girl transformed into a gale, gliding in parallel with the floor. Without touching the ground, she took a perfect attacking stance and swung with a horizontal sweep that would have been called an Ichimonji in the Far East. She took a perfect attacking stance, the horizontal sweep that she swung her great scythe. The humanoid phantasmal was severed in two, utterly destroyed. At that moment, the three servants and one other combatant were functioning as a singular unit. However, regeneration, restoration. No, this was exactly why vampires were spoken of as undying beings. It took less than the span of a single breath. Born as an absolute scourge on mankind, a race that defied its existence as a creature of the living, a child of the laws of physics and an undying one. A monster that sustained its body with an unbeating heart that made no sound, absorbing magical energy with its breath, draining life with its fangs. It did not die, did not decay, did not fall. It scoffed, sneered, and devoured humans. Take heed, heroes. What stands before you is your enemy. An ordinary phantasmal would have vanished entirely. Completely. Perfectly. The demon, even with its clothing restored, touched the white blade of the scythe with its fingertips. There was a hint of some sort of interference. The girl known as Gray had a swift reaction. Before the newly reformed hand of death could reach her, she leapt far behind him. With an air of profound regret, the vampire tilted its head and traced a circle with its finger. Something appeared. Like the subspecies Holy Grail, it floated in the center of the hall with dazzling glow. Above the bloodsucker's humanoid head, on its right shoulder and left shoulder, three light sources were floating there. Spiritual cores. Castor let out a brief explanation tinged with suspicion and doubt. Yes, I have more than one core. These are the heroic spirit cores, 3 in total. Replying to his declaration, the light sources, the ultra-dense masses of magical energy provisionally termed heroic spirit cores, flickered. What were they? The souls of heroes, immense power, the source of transcendence, mystic stones polished on spiritual cores, the finest experimental material this demon could hope for. The regrets of heroic spirits summoned this false Holy Grail war, shaped by the subspecies Holy Grail who, despite having wishes within them, fell in the Labyrinth, lost their ethereal bodies, and had their spiritual cores taken. I used the fourth to create the two-headed dragon. Allow me to show you what these 3 can accomplish. Oh wait, I missed it. To create the two-headed dragon, but it seems that you splendidly destroyed it, but never mind that. Allow me to show you what these 3 can accomplish. I've never known the joys of plucking ripe fruit from a tree, but I can imagine that extracting your spiritual cores will give me a similar sensation. A declaration of pure insolence. Heroes do not always rely on words. You talk so much. Or you talk too much. Or how should we do it? Should we, you talk too much? You talk so much. Yeah, let's stretch it out there. You talk so much. Just shut up. Some specialize in stealth with the element of surprise. You arrows, launched from an invisible blind, spoke. We'll go the you out arrows, right? I think it's capitalized because it's his special thing. The U arrows, launched from an invisible blind, had enough power to shatter even this demon's physical body upon direct impact, and they closed in as if drawn to their target. This demonic monster, humanoid yet inhuman, was, put simply, impurity incarnate. Thus, an arrow like his may have brought about its true death. But it fell short. Making no attempt to hide its fanged mouth, the vampire let out a wild laugh, unleashing the heroic spirit cores. Thus, the poison arrow was nullified. The monster, who was not a god but warded off death by feeding on blood, used the 3 balls of magical energy linked to it to accomplish an impossible feat with the subspecies Holy Grail. It connected to the Throne of Heroes. No, in the end, it was only a fleeting fragment that imitated what the Holy Grail could provide, no more than an advanced version of summoning magecraft that Magi wielded. And yet, given the results thus far, it was to be expected. In other words, a heroic spirit had materialized in a form other than a servant. Whoa. Roaring, howling. A crimson image 3 meters in length let out a mad roar. A colossal figure, easily mistaken for a giant, had taken shape. The shadow of a heroic spirit. The manifestation of a false anti-hero, its body formed from a torrent of murky liquid. An enormous agent of destruction that operated under Wolfgang Faustus's command. A mad warrior devoid of spirit or will, wielding twin axes like massive blades to shatter everything in its path. Okay, well, I have an idea who twin axes might be. Colossal figure. Is this freaking, what's his face? Darius? Its true name will go unspoken. All that remained were the tears of agony flowing from behind its iron mask? Oh. Oh, wait, never mind. Oh, wait, no, never mind. Of course, we're in the Labyrinth. This is friggin', this is Asterios. All that remained were the tears of agony flowing from behind its iron mask that covered its head like a giant shield. Now destroy everything, Lord of the Great Labyrinth of Daedalus. Ha 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 ha. Rejoice, Guardians. This is a fitting finale for you. Okay, yeah, it's Asterios. That actually makes a lot of sense. Of course we're in the Labyrinth. I'm shocked we went this long without referencing that. I find myself smiling, thinking back on it for just a moment. Oh, wait. Oh, we're back to Monaca? My days with the other you. The little moments with Artoria, who wasn't my Arthur Pendragon. Morning, noon, and night. We walked through the darkness together. We fought. We slept. Oh, and we did a lot of cooking, too. I had become a fragile human. I couldn't use much magecraft. If I got hurt, it would have been over. I would have just died with no way to stop it. Like a princess in a story waiting for her prince to arrive. In the gap of slumber, I had a dream. How long was it in our own flow of time? A few minutes? No, 53 seconds? I'll admit it, I really did enjoy my insignificant days in the Labyrinth. But I have a few regrets. I'm a little disappointed I couldn't make it all the way to the end of the 4th floor. And I didn't even get to say a proper goodbye to the other you. All because of this child still drifting down here in our greater grail. Realizing I was alone, the child dragged me all the way back from the Labyrinth to here. What can you do? Well, what can you do? There's a lot of time left tonight. Shall I go and tell you about my dream as you walk the streets of Tokyo? Oh, or maybe... Ha 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 ha! That was supposed to be him. The humanoid phantasmal laughed on and on and on. To me, it was like a triumphant cackle of someone certain that he'd won. Oh, King Lycaon, I ask you to bless me, a descendant of Arcadia. What? Okay, well, who's this? King Lycaon, King of Arcadia. Lycaon was a king of Arcadia who, in the most popular version of the myth, killed and cooked his son, served him to Zeus to see whether God was sufficiently all-knowing to recognize human flesh. Disgusted, Zeus transformed Lycaon into a wolf. Well, that's where we get the name from. That makes sense, right? While his son was restored to life. Though notorious for his horrific deed, he was remembered as a culture hero. Okay. Let's see here. I'm just looking here for anything that might be related to what we're talking about. List of sons. Oh, that's a list. That's a list. Okay, so he has... I'm just looking here for any names that we recognize. There's a lot. This is the biggest list ever. Holy crap. Yeah, there's not really anyone here that I can relate to Fate at all. He had 50 sons with many wives. Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. Anyways, oh, King Lycaon, I ask you to bless me, a descendant of Arcadia. Hearing the demon from a distance, I watched the deadly struggle between heroes and monsters. So I'm assuming that, okay, so is it saying that, so he summoned Asterios, right? And now he's summoning King Lycaon? Is that what's going on? I'm guessing? Okay. The deadly struggle between heroes and monsters. Assassin had taken me and leaped to the entrance of the room where the battle's impact was minimal. Because of that, I was still alive, uninvolved in the chaos. I wasn't dead. But there was nothing I could do. I couldn't even offer some meager spell to assist them. I couldn't offer a single word of encouragement. Anything I tried would be meaningless. My eyes, which could grasp mystery, told me so. This was the reenactment of mythology, a banquet of slaughter where legend descended upon the 21st century. It was not something a mere mortal could intrude upon. Caster's magecraft exploding without end, Archer's countless arrows, the dirks that assassin hurled like bullets, swings from Gray's scythe, the crimson giant which revealed itself, endured all of them with its axes of destruction. If any fragment of them were to touch me, I would shatter into pieces. Okay, so no, it is only the one there. So he's just saying this. Okay. He's just calling for a blessing from King Lycaon. Okay, sure. Where were we? Without a doubt, with absolute certainty, the cold terror which pierced my body like a skewer had eased somewhat when the three servants joined the fight. I'd never imagined it, just as countless legends and tales once described. Saviors had come to rescue me. Thinking so, hoping it was true, I stood frozen in place. Why wasn't Saber there? What had the halted flow of magical energy caused by my vanishing command spell brought upon her? Trying not to let my mind dwell on the worst-case scenario, to the very end, I didn't know how the battle was going, but all I could do was watch. A storm of death, an unceasing gale of might, a roar of destruction, both physical and mystical, drowned out even the sound of my own breath. What's the matter, heroes? Is that all the three of you could muster? Go on, kill me! If you don't kill me now, I shall ascend up the ladder of existence. The blood-sucking monster spoke. The demon dressed in black spoke. He claimed that he had transcended the phantasmal existence, that he had conquered mystery itself, that he was in essence equal to the root of all things. That's too important to not capitalize. I know that, like, if you just do the root capital, but if we're saying the root of all things, I think it should all be capitalized. Pretty delusional for a monster. Archer snapped, keeping his voice short and sharp to remain hidden. This vampire. Does he hope to become an elemental? Oh, I knew that term that Castor used. Elemental. An embodiment of nature which senses the touch of the planet. Okay, well, not necessarily, right? Because isn't it like each of the elementals represents a different one? So it's not this, which, acts as a sense for the planet, such as touch, right? Am I wrong? I'm pretty sure, because I remember people saying, like, if Arcuit is the touch the planet, then, the other ones, right? Am I right? Actually, I should double check. Elementals FGO. Because I remember people wanted to be... Okay, perfect. Here's a Reddit entry. What are elementals? They're born for a specific purpose. Some have specific abilities. Okay, well, that doesn't really... Are just powerful fairies that aren't invisible. True ancestors of various spirits are them. They're extensions of the planet meant to regulate stuff. Yeah, so they are senses, essentially, right? So they are organs of the planet, right? Arcuit is the mind, right? Yeah, because Woodwoe said he's the lungs of the planet, right? Okay, yeah. So, right, embodiment of nature, which act as a, let's say, sensory organ, right? Something like the counterforce, which was deeply involved in the survival of the world itself. Embodying a return to the age of gods, capable of materializing fantasy into the world, nature spirits. As knowledge recorded in books, yes, but I had another way of perceiving it. Absolute beings, gods, or true monsters, far beyond the bounds of my imagination. I failed the first time, the second as well, but now, here in this third attempt, I at least succeeded in absorbing the subspecies Holy Grail. A blood-sucking demon like you? A bitter voice escaped Assassin's lips as he raced along the wall with Gray. I couldn't quite make sense of the demon's words or the heroic spirit's reactions. But I hated it. I hated fear. I didn't want to be afraid. I wanted to be certain that these heroes would seize victory. My brain accurately processed the visual information reflected in my eyes. I realized these three servants have already exhausted a significant amount of magical energy on the journey here. I couldn't take it anymore. I couldn't watch this brutal battle forever. The mad warrior's strikes, taking shapes as masses of crimson blood, were far too powerful. The grand magecraft that the bloodsucker weaved at times was definitely dealing damage to Gray and the three servants. The trajectory of the giant crimson blade that could shatter anything in the space itself. The pitch-black death running on some form of magecraft I couldn't comprehend. Both had lethal power. The fact that they appeared unharmed at a glance was a misperception. Castor was expending all of the strength she had left to maintain her defenses, and even that was nearing its limit. What escaped my lips wasn't a cry of grief. It was the premonition of the hero's defeat vibrating out of my throat in the form of a groan. I wasn't confused. In an instant, a realization that bordered on certainty filled my mind. No, this couldn't go on. If I don't do something, we'd all be killed by those monsters. Not just me, Gray too. And probably Ad. Even the heroic spirits, who were only there with temporary lives, would have their spiritual cores ripped from them. No. I shook my head. A damp sensation ran from the corner of my eye and down to my cheek. Was I crying? Because I was scared? I don't know. I couldn't grasp what emotions were driving me. I didn't want to be killed. I didn't want to die. I didn't want these heroes to be crushed. It felt like rejection and denial were tearing my mind and soul apart. I was falling apart. Norma Goodfellow was shattering into pieces. I'm sorry, heroes who stare down this monster with courage I couldn't muster. I'm sure that by the time my body is gone, Oh, jeez. Someone's voice? a beautiful voice whispering in my ear. For a little while, you were me. The voice of a familiar girl, like the sound of a bell. So, pull yourself together, okay? Something that shouldn't have existed welled up inside me. There isn't much time left, but I'm still here. Just a little bit. What was it? Courage? Or maybe hope? The last thing illuminating and guiding this weak heart that was ready to give up all hope. Slowly I lifted my head. Only then did I realize that I'd been looking down. Too afraid to even continue watching the battle between heroes and monsters, I was staring down at my feet. I'd look straight ahead. I wouldn't avert my eyes anymore because... Manaka, if you tell me to, if even a tiny bit of you remained within me, within my cowardly, weak body that was always so close to running away, I would stop trembling. I'd stop looking down. I'd stop letting despair break my heart into pieces. Saber's already gone, isn't she? I wanted to say goodbye. Sorry, it's my fault. No, it's not your fault, is it? I get it. It was that man in black over there that made her go away. Yeah. You know what to do now, right? Yeah. With a small nod, guided by the remnants of that omnipotent girl, I reached out a hand. That's good, Norma. You're about to pull off a miracle. A modest one. Small one. Just look at them. Archer's cheerful whispering saying that's the spirit. Caster's complicated muttering saying I never thought I'd see something like this in this era. Assassin looks convinced. I could tell through his mask. And then there's her. I wonder if the ashen girl who looks like Saber was surprised. Oh, right. Oh, wait, no, wait, this is... I thought this was her talking to herself, but no, this is Manaka again. It was only temporary, but this is the first time she saw me. Though, the man in black seems more surprised than anyone, doesn't he? He arranged all kinds of useless things, arranging them here and there. The man who prevented me from saying goodbye to the other Saber. He needs to be taught a lesson, don't you think? Aim carefully, Norma. Reach out straight ahead. And believe that you can grab hold of everything. That's right. Absolutely everything. You... Well, he's flustered. What on earth are you? Well, he's scared. That insolent vampire who wanted to take such twisted power for himself, his existence, his world, just tear it apart. And then, a rainbow of light was unleashed. Not the radiance of the stars, nor the scorching heat of the sun, not the might of destruction, nor a curse of mass death. The three spiritual cores and subspecies Holy Grail, the sources of Wolfgang Faustus's power, vanished alongside the vortex of destruction in the form of a mad crimson mirror image. What recourse could there have possibly been? There wasn't anyone who could put it into words. All of it, in an instant, as if flowing. There was perfect coordination reminiscent of the party which once reached the pinnacle of proficiency. The heroic spirit of magecraft bound the demon's body to the void. The heroic spirit of darkness crushed its heart with God's judgment. The heroic spirit of the bow halted the regeneration of his flesh with poisoned arrows. And then, tracing an arc of light as she went, the Grim Reaper's scythe cleaved it in two. The vampire, who hoped to become a king of fantasy, was shattered by her miraculous light, leaving behind no more than the faint glow of ether. Well, that's a big extra page there. Cool, so that's just the father-son Kamehameha. You love to see it. Okay, epilogue. When the subspecies Holy Grail activated, the seventh Labyrinth of Alcatraz was transformed into a locked room of death. As a result, the Den of Evil was destined to reopen its maw. With the return of my disciple, we can consider the abnormal situation within the labyrinth resolved. The seal on the entrance has also been lifted. Including my disciple, there were 2 survivors. Oh, there was another survivor? Wait, who? Oh, including my... including my disciple, of course. Regrettably, all other external collaborators lost their lives. The subspecies Holy Grail War has been destroyed. The individual who became the new dungeon master in Alcatraz's place was plotting an experiment that did indeed utilize Agrippa's planetary magic square, as suspected. According to my disciple's testimony, he claimed to be a vampiric species. Using the spiritual cores to summon heroic spirits, what exactly did he hope to accomplish? Indeed, if one were to effectively utilize the planetary magic square using spiritual cores as raw material, I could not say with certainty that the possibility of resurrecting a spiritual foundation is zero. This does provide a somewhat plausible explanation for our current situation. However, several questions remain. There are limits to how far we can rely solely on the testimony of a disciple with limited knowledge of magecraft. Further investigation of Labyrinth, including a source for trace of this individual, will likely be necessary. An excerpt from the journals of Lord Elmaloy II. Yeah, we figured that out pretty quickly, actually. I'm entirely myself again. I can no longer hear your voice. It used to reach me so clearly, but now there isn't a single trace of your presence anywhere. Seijo Manaka, you who possessed my body in the dark labyrinth. When I close my eyes, I can recall the flowing hem of your green dress. You were beautiful. You were wonderful. You smiled more gently than anyone else. The fact that I'm still alive and able to go outside now, the fact I made it out without a single scratch, the fact I can breathe in the slightly cold morning air and squint my eyes in the bright sunlight, it was surely thanks. Okay, so I might be wrong about her being a heroic spirit. Hey, it was a gamble at the very last moment. It was surely thanks to those brave heroic spirits, Gray and Manaka, and Ad and Manaka. Thank you, and I'm sorry for the fact that Norma Goodfellow's body held you back. But above all else, for the sandwich. I ate the food you made for Saber. I was gonna give the leftovers to Saber, but I couldn't even do that. If I hadn't run away near the entrance to the 4th floor, I would have been able to give her your final gift properly. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. How could I ever hope to repay you? Manaka, you, who returned to your rightful place. You, who had no fear. Near the edge of a forest that was thick with green trees, there was the entrance to a labyrinth, its sealed maw now open. In the soft sunlight of morning, people said their farewells. 3 heroic spirits. In the end, the subspecies Holy Grail had been destroyed. It would be a lie to say that those who wished to seal it were entirely satisfied, but 3 shared the opinion that destroying the vampire along with the subspecies Holy Grail wasn't necessarily the worst choice given the circumstances. None of them could blame the girl with the orange-dyed hair, though there may have been a few snide remarks among them. When there were, the girl lowered her head, her expression became so faint that it seemed as if she were the one who would vanish. Don't lower your head. Come on, eyes up front. Forcibly grabbing her hand, Archer pressed something into it. A bracelet. A labyrinth mystic code imbued with some form of magecraft. It's from Saber. Since Manaka's gone, it makes sense to pass it to you instead. But there's no reason to give me anything. And let's just say you're holding onto it for now. Then when she turned toward the quiet then let's just say you're holding onto it for now. When she turned toward the quiet voice that came from behind a mask, Assassin was no longer there. He hadn't activated presence concealment. He was gone. Indeed, they would vanish. Without the subspecies Holy Grail, the anchor that allowed them to remain in the material world, heroic spirits could not maintain their physical forms. I'll be vanishing too. I suppose we won't be seeing one another again. Castor vanished into the light as well. And then, you're so impatient. Well, guess it's about my time too. Take care of yourself, Manaka's vessel. As for my true name, I guess I'll tell you if you ever become a real master someday. Archer melted into the shimmer of the morning sun. Only one remained, a lone girl gazing at the bracelet. She muttered something. Her lips moved slightly. Words spoken to the 4 heroic spirits who were already gone? Were they a farewell? Or perhaps Arthur Pendragon? She really said that name? Yes. I see. A short distance away, the 2 exchanged words. One, a long-haired man who puffed cigar smoke into the dawn sky. The other, a girl wearing a gray hood. Nodding at his apprentice, the man, Lord El Malloy, cast his gaze into the distance. His thoughts seemed to wander, not to this far corner of the forest, the entrance to a garden of wondrous mystery known as the Labyrinth, but to elsewhere, an entirely different time and place. In any case, we'll have to ask her lots of questions. She's witnessed phenomena on a scale that the modern world can't imagine. Her testimony will be invaluable. That includes figuring out if these events can be reproduced. There he is. Are you sure, Professor? What is it? The man turned around. The girl wanted to say something to him. She couldn't quite get it out. She stammered. It seemed like she still couldn't bring herself to say what she wanted to say. But instead, she seemed to have remembered something. I actually have some of this sandwich left over. I cannot believe the sandwich is so important. The end! Wowie, wow, wow, that's the end. It kind of just wraps up. It kind of does. Huh. Monster Encyclopedia. Oh, I'm gonna have to get full screen for this baby. Oh yeah, here we go. Let's see here. Okay, what do we got? Kelpie. Yeah, so that's straight up the exact design that's used in FGO. 100%. That's cool. Weakness is fire, water near Britain, lure, aqua hoof, charge, grapple, flying strike, charm, skill seal. Right? Yeah, these are the wait, water sack, water spirit drops 50%, 5%. Oh my god, they are literally like doing this like it's D&D, which is really funny, right? We got the chimeras there, which yeah, they are messed up creatures. Golems. Yeah, that looks about what I think so. Okay, the automata are actually terrifying. They are just straight spiders. Horrible. I hate them. I hate them, indeed. Okay. Dragon Golem and the human-eating fairies there, right? Interesting. Fake Dragonkin, familiar. 1 to 2 apples. Charm, powerful. Okay. Well, and that just leaves the afterword then. So, Sakurai Hikaru. Subspecies Holy Grail War. 4 heroic spirits summoned to a labyrinth, which I can say it normally this time, which permitted none to leave alive. Will they dance to the master's tune, or perhaps will further intruders? This work is a new story woven by heroic spirits and magi from across the Fate series, together with Seiji Manaka, central character of Fate. Prototype Fragments. Sky Silver is one of the protagonists. As of late 2015, much like Fate Grand Order, mobile game currently in development, the story can be called a dream collaboration, made possible that all works that bear the name Fate, each in their respective wars, share one common setting and throne of heroes. Shadowy Labyrinth, a garden of death filled with terrifying monsters and deadly traps. Should bring complete despair, and yet it also brings a certain kind of feeling. Throbbing excitement in my chest, I can't hope to stop a dizzying sense of excitement. Ever since I was a child, I was like fantasy novels set in labyrinths most of all. On mornings I was home from school, sick from school, I would lay in bed and dream, engrossed in Volume 2 of Michio Fukuzawa Sensei's Fortune Quest. Never heard of that. Probably Japanese, that's why. So, to finally have the opportunity to work on a story within a labyrinth because of so many coincidences was the greatest stroke of luck of my life, from the bottom of my heart. Now for some acknowledgements. Nasukinoku-sama, thank you not again for approving the idea of having servants explore a dungeon, but the instructing me on the specifics of blank and blank within the Fate universe. How blank, as a phantasmal, can have so much power despite dead apostles not being as powerful as they are in a certain other work, for example. Okay. So basically, that was the way they wrote it, because yeah, dead apostles shouldn't be that expensive, right? Or not expensive, powerful. For being a supervising editor, Takuchi Takashi-sama, championing the miraculous pair of Manaka and Saber is the only reason this work is able to take shape the way it did. Thank you. Nakahara, continuing from Fragments of Sky Silver, you continue to provide beautiful full-color illustrations. Delighted to see a different side of Manaka, different from the persona we see in Sky Silver through your art, as well as familiar heroic spirits from other works. Norma and the Hood and Girl 2. Matajiro, thanks to your intense and powerful monster illustrations. Yeah. Sanda Makoto-sama, thank you for giving your permission for a certain character to appear in the volume release epilogue, as well as your supervision overall. Never thought they'd say yes. It felt just like yesterday we were whispering those two are the same type of machine, as we looked over interactions between that character and Norma. Huh. We got Higashide, Yuichiro-sama, Naruto Rogo-sama, thanks as always. Morisa Ryo-sama, the source of my bizarre inspiration. I'll never forget the favor that you did for me, not just in researching and verifying blank, but also for whispering the idea. They're not saying what they are, and it's killing me, but for whispering the idea of a dungeon to me, as I rack my brain for short, intense serialization ideas. Designers at Win Fanworks, yeah, Koyama, yeah. And whoever enjoys this story, I offer my thanks, a million thanks. Until next time, whenever we meet again. All right. Well, that there is our time with Fate Labyrinth. I'm happy that we were able to read it because, again, it is. I do like the idea of let's just do a total Fate side story. And I do like the idea of it was just like, hey, I like to read fantasy stories set in a labyrinth. I'm going to do one myself. And like, I think that's the purest sort of idea and is a super, super fun thing to do, right? And with that, that does mean that, you know, the whole of the Fragments of Sky Silver series is now complete, right? Because this is kind of the spin-off of it. Of course, the manga is coming out in English now, so please go out and support that. I will be making an update to the Fragments of Sky Silver light novels that we did, all of them, once the light novel or the manga version is out. Mostly, I'm going to make sure all the names are the same, as well as I got some feedback on some ideas from some of the previous volumes there. But yeah, so that'll be done in the future. But I gotta wait for that to come out so I can double check to make sure all of the names and ideas are the same with, you know, the sort of canon ones. But I guess the question of what's next. Now, like I said, we will be returning to Fate Strange Fake, you know, continuing on with volume 6 onward there. But before that, we do have one quick one-off video where I will be covering Maho Tsukai no Hako Starlit Marmalade, as well as Hibichika Time, because we got stuff coming up in FGO. This will probably just be one video. It's one volume each, but it should be pretty quick to get through, I feel. The only thing is, Hibichika does not have all of it in English. They stop less than halfway in English, which is a bit of a shame, but I can't do anything about that because the other translations are in Ukrainian, but knowing that it's not super important, I think it's just a good primer on the Maho Tsukai no Hako. That's what it is, right? Maho Tsukai no Hako. Yeah. It's a good primer on that. So we'll be doing those in a one-off video. And then we'll be back for Strange Fake. So then we will continue on with that. So thank you all for watching, guys. Be on the lookout for the final PDF of this coming out on, well, whenever I'm about done getting that all set up. But yeah, we'll see you guys next time. Ciao.
Yo.